Welcome back to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to the two factions that Andrew and I will be using for our playthrough, and then I'm going to show you how to set up for a game of Summoner Wars. But first, I had a couple of questions come in. The first one was from Fluman83, and he wanted to know, can you attack through other units? So if I had a ranged unit that was trying to hit a target that was 3 spaces away from me, but there was a friendly unit sitting between me and my target, could I still attack my target? The answer is no. Whether it's a friendly unit, an enemy unit, or a wall, if there is a card sitting between you and your target, you will not be able to attack your target unless the card that you're attacking with or the event that you've played that turn has a special ability that allows you to attack through other units. And the last question is about placing newly summoned units. Now you'll remember in the last video I mentioned when you want to summon a new unit to the battlefield, it has to be placed adjacent to one of your walls, and your walls always have to be played on your side of the battlefield. But Sildago106 was wondering, if you've placed your wall on your side of the battlefield, but right here, adjacent or next to the border between the two halves, can you then summon a unit next to this wall, but in this position here, so it actually starts in your opponent's half of the battlefield? It's very aggressive, but you can certainly do that. Alright, so give me a second. I'm going to grab the two faction decks that me and Andrew are going to be playing with, and I'll show you which ones they are. Normally in our video series, if a game has expansions or variants, we don't include it in our playthrough because we want to show you how the game plays if you just had the base set. Now in the case of Summoner Wars, it's a little bit different because you can do what I did and pick up the master set, which comes with 6 different factions, or you can pick up one of the 2 smaller starter sets, which come with 2 factions each. Now, none of these factions overlap, they're all unique, and each of these products allow you to play the full game out of the box. So in this situation, which factions we picked is a little less relevant. So with that in mind, Andrew and I decided it didn't matter which factions we played with, so we thought we would play with a couple of the factions you can't get in any of the starter sets. These are faction decks you can pick up separately. They do not in any way change the rules of the game, so the gaming experience you see in our playthrough will be similar to what you'll find in your starter set. The nice thing about this is you will not be spoiled at all. Everything that you get in your starter set will be new to you if you decide to pick one of them up, and you'll have a sense of what to look forward to if you like the game and want to expand it further. So the faction I'll be using is the Fallen Kingdom. Now I'm not going to show you all of the cards that come in this deck, but I will show you the starting units that begin on the battlefield at the start of the game. The first one is Reptalis. This is my summoner, the most important card in the deck. It has the ability to raise the dead. Now instead of attacking with him, I can spend 2 magic points and choose one of the common units in my discard pile and put it back on the battlefield next to my summoner. Units that come back from the dead? Could this be a zombie-style deck? Well, let's see. Next up, we have the Zombie Warrior. Well, I guess that answers that question. This unit has the infectability. Each time that this unit destroys an enemy unit, I can immediately remove a Zombie Warrior from my discard pile and place it on the space that the destroyed unit had occupied. Next is the Skeletal Archer. Now remember, normally when one of your units is destroyed by your opponent, your unit goes face down in their magic pile. But with this ability, Magic Locked, when this Skeletal Archer is destroyed, you immediately roll a die, and on a roll of 3 or higher, the Skeletal Archer just goes into my discard pile, which is much better than it going into my opponent's magic pile. And so lastly, we have the Reaper. This Reaper has the Soul Harvest ability. Each time that this Reaper destroys another unit that would normally go into my magic pile, I instead have to place that card underneath of the Reaper. And then for every card underneath of the Reaper, I add 1 to the Reaper's attack value, which means I get to roll an additional die every time the Reaper attacks. And here is the Vanguard's faction deck that Andrea is going to be using, and her summoner is called Sarah Eldwin, and she has the Greater Healing ability. Now remember, during your attack phase, you can attack with up to 3 units, but Andrea will have the choice of, instead of attacking with her summoner, she could choose to spend 1 magic point and remove up to 2 wound markers from a common or champion unit that is adjacent to Sarah Eldwin. The next unit that she has is a priest. Now this is very similar. The ability is very similar to the summoner, just not quite as powerful. This healing ability allows, instead of attacking with the priest, Andrea can remove a wound marker from a common unit that is adjacent to the priest, or she can spend 1 magic point to remove a wound marker from a champion that is adjacent to the priest. Next, we have the Guardian Knight. The Protector ability on this card means that if an enemy unit is adjacent to one or more of these Guardian Knights that Andrea controls, then when that unit attacks, a Guardian Knight must be the target of that attack. So if I was beating up on Andrea's priest and she rushes one of these Guardian Knights over and puts it adjacent to my unit, then when I go to attack, I'm going to have to attack the Guardian Knight instead of the priest. And just so you don't think it's a bunch of healing and protective pansies on her faction, there's also the Stalwart Archer. This has the Hail of Arrows ability. When this archer attacks, you add 1 to its attack value during that attack for each other friendly archer adjacent to this archer. The next cards we have to look at are these. Now these are unique cards that come with each faction deck, and they show you how to set up your starting units on the board. This is mine here for the Fallen Kingdom, shows my half of the board, and these letters represent different units that come in my faction deck. So this letter S here stands for Reptalis, my summoner. The W here is the W here in the legend, which stands for a wall card. The A is a Reaper, the B is a zombie warrior, and then there's 2 C's to show that I'm going to start with 2 skeletal archers. In her case, her wall is actually in the same spot that mine is, but now just behind it, she has 2 of her Guardian Knights, and then a 3rd Guardian Knight over here on the right. Beside that is her Summoner, then a Priest, and over here she has her Stalwart Archer. So her units are all clumped together in a very protective formation, whereas my guys are kind of spread out and shambling around. Maybe they're a little bit afraid of the Summoner, don't want to get too close to him. Who knows what that evil-looking dude's going to do. Don't forget, in this game you can attack your own units, so maybe they're afraid that Reptalis is going to consume them so he can build his powerful magic. Alright, so using this card as a reference, I've set up my starting units on the board, including my wall. I've taken the rest of the cards in my faction deck, I've shuffled them up, placed them face down here in my draw pile, and then the card I used as a reference I can flip over, and now it gives me the turn phase summary, a little reminder of what I do on my turn, and it lists all the event cards in my deck and how many of each there are. So this is a card that's usually good to keep somewhere handy, especially when you're first learning to play the game. But now I'll spin the board around and I'll show you what Andrea's side looks like. And here's Andrea's side all set up as well. I'm just going to flip this card over. And now you would be ready to begin. And so the first thing each player does is they roll a die, and whoever gets the highest value decides whether they want to go first or they want to make their opponent go first. If you're going first, your first turn is actually a little different than turns normally would go. You have to skip your draw phase, skip the summon phase, skip the play event cards phase, and then during the movement phase, where you would normally be able to move 3 of your units, you're only allowed to move up to 2 of them. Then the first player gets to complete the attack and build magic phase like they normally would, but since they didn't get to draw any cards, it's going to be a lot harder to build magic during the build magic phase. But then after that, everything resumes as normal. So the second player then takes a full turn starting by drawing cards. Then when it comes back to the initial player's turn, they get to take a full turn as normal. So it's a slight handicap at the beginning of the game for the first player to even out that advantage of being able to go first. Okay, so once you've got the game board set up, you just need to make sure you have the wound markers close by, and then the dice. I've got a dice box here that we'll use during the gameplay, and then you're ready to go. So in the next video, we can begin the actual gameplay, and as always, we want to get you involved. So what we'll do is we'll take a few turns each, and then we'll end each episode so that there's an important decision that has to be made, and let you guys vote on what we should do next. Now, Andrea and I talked about whether or not you should be helping me out during the gameplay or Andrea, and she was pretty clear that she wanted you guys to help me out, and she had an excellent reason for that, because she realized in order for you guys to help her out, I was going to have to record her hand, which would mean I get to see what card she's holding at the end of each episode, and she did not want to give me that advantage. Smart girl, I can't argue with that, so you're stuck with me. Sorry if you were disappointed, maybe you'd like to help Andrea crush me. Don't worry, you may still get to see that, because even with your help, believe me, she's very good at this game. Alright, one last thing before I go. This is going to be the first episode where I take advantage of our Watch It Played editors. Right now we have a fundraiser going on our Indiegogo fundraiser page. You can visit it here and down here and donate if you want to. But one of the perk levels is that you can become an editor. And the editors get to see the episodes a day before they're released to everyone else. Now that's not because they're super special and they deserve it more than you do. They actually have a role to play in this. As you know, occasionally... The contest word is doc. Doc. I make mistakes in the videos. So our editors are hopefully going to catch those mistakes and let me know about them, so I actually have a chance to correct them before the videos are out there forever and ever and ever. That way, if there's a really big or particularly embarrassing mistake, I'll have a chance to take the video offline, correct the mistakes, and upload a new and improved version. Basically, the editors are going to help make me look better, hopefully help the show be better, which I'm looking forward to. All right, well, in the next episode, as I said, we'll be getting the actual gameplay. Thanks again for watching it played. We'll see you then.